start throwing them fish in a minute.
We love
honestly.
you, Chidge.
Yeah,
we love you.
It's cupboard love. Right, I am Stanford Chidge. This is the Chelsea Football Fancast, and we're about to start talking about the Cardiff City-Chelsea match, the last match of the season. Always tinged with a little bit of sadness for me. But, Dan, I think that, I think the game on Sunday really summed up our season perfectly. I mean, we go 1-0 down to... they were abject. I mean, we were all over them like a rash for the first 10 minutes.
They were complete dross, weren't they, really?
They were really poor.
Yeah.
We go 1-0 down. I mean, we created so many chances but couldn't put them away. I mean, it was very typical of our performances against teams of that ilk this season, don't you think?
Totally, but we did, of course, turn it around at the end. But as Pablo said rightly, if Torres scores the goal he definitely should have scored, then that's a very different game. We'd have won 4-5, 6-0. I don't know. They were terrible, really particularly at the back.
Well, they spent the first half trying to pass it in between their goalie and whoever was. They were literally trying to give us a goal.
They were. Yeah. Fabio was like AWOL. I mean, unbelievably AWOL.
But who was more AWOL than him? It was us. We were totally AWOL in the first half.
No, I don't know. I actually thought for the early start of the game, I thought we were all over them. I mean, Oscar goes down, could have had a penalty.
Yeah.
We were really at it, and then we kind of, because we didn't score within 1 minute, we just thought, might as well go on holiday then. It had that kind of feel about it, didn't it?
And there were a few guys there who looked like they were already on the flight to Brazil. I mean, again, not naming too many names.
We're going to get into that in a minute.
Oscar was notably the first man down the tunnel.
Make a kind of riposte about Oscar. I thought he started having a real influence on the game and looking really good at the point that Mikel came off and he dropped back. Because
when he started looking good when he dropped back. I agree with that.
Because he was given more space that he could kind of afford to be more languid, and that gave him the opportunity to do the stuff that we all know he's capable of doing, and he started really dictating the play then, whereas when he was up between the lines of very deep lines of defence and midfield, he didn't go anywhere. And
he was the one name on the team sheet I was quite surprised to see there. I didn't think Mourinho would pick him, and you wonder why he's picked him. Is he trying to teach him a bit of a lesson? Is he telling him who's boss?
Well, let's get into this right now. I mean, I'll go back to the appalling amount of shots that we wasted earlier, but I just wonder whether Oscar in particular and Hazard need an attitude adjustment. I mean, I thought that Oscar was playing it like it was a training game, although I accept what you say when he went deeper. But, I mean, basically, he's been poor since Mata left. And, I think clearly, and in some ways it's understandable that he's got the World Cup on his mind. I mean, it's in his home country. He's one of the stars of the show.
And he's Brazilian.
Therein lies the point.
Yeah.
I mean, a large part of me wants to think, well, no, actually, mate, you play for Chelsea and that's where it begins and ends. But you kind of can understand it. But he has been disappointing. It'd be very interesting to see him play, I think, during the World Cup. What I hope will happen is that he'll play in the World Cup, he will be the star of the show, he'll win it, get that out of his system, and he'll come back even better next year, because he's gone backwards for the last 6 months for me.
The real lesson would be if Willian ends up taking his place in the starting 11 for Brazil.
For Brazil? Yeah, well, that'd be interesting.
Which isn't impossible.
Well, especially with Scolari as manager.
What do you think about that? You think that's a good plan?
Well, obviously it'd be nice for them to win it if we're not going to win it. So,
Mate,
we're not going to win it,
we'll be lucky. We'll be lucky to get nil against Costa Rica, mate.
Always got to stay optimistic.
You've seen the team today.
You've always got to stay optimistic about things. So,
no, I don't. I'm a miserable old you-know-what. So
I mean, I wouldn't bet money on England though, but
and you bet on everything.
Exactly.
Terry to score. He's not in the squad.
Jeff Hurst will get a hat-trick, I predict that, all right? I tell you what, they picked Jeff Hurst, he'd be better than the strikers that they have picked even now, mate, but there you go. But do you think it's a question of, he needs to get the whole World Cup thing out of his system? I hope he'll come back
maybe it is
next year.
because of that. Maybe it's just the end of the season. If we had to win it to win the league, maybe it would have been a bit different, but I don't know, I certainly think our last few displays have been quite lacklustre. I don't think it's really fair to just say one player from one match when we didn't even seem to want it that much against Norwich City.
Yeah.
We haven't really wanted it for the last few matches, which is very unlike
sir?
Jose Mourinho, isn't it?
They should have had him in, shouldn't they? They should have got old Paul Whitehouse. Do you want it, sir? Do you want it, Oscar?
He'd probably scored that goal at the beginning of the game.
Well, I mean, actually, that'll get a nod in the fannies later on, actually. But he did have a few chances, as did they all. I mean, we had 22 shots off target and 6 on target, which that is the story of the season against teams like that. Liam, who we know and love, of course, who writes very good tactical analyses of the games for the website, he had a moan about Hazard not tracking back a lot again and also giving the ball away for the goal, which in fact is true. He did, and he kind of flounced horribly. He flounced in a Belgian type of way, in a waffly sort of way.
Very good.
In fact, he had an underbelly as soft as a Belgian chocolate eclair.
Too far.
Okay.
The waffling one was excellent, though.
Well, you like the waffling one, right?
Could you do some flouncing for us?
I did a bit of a flounce. He flounced like that.
I don't think that's flouncing.
I think he flounced. Anyway.
He just wants to flounce because he's on the bench.
He just wants the tension.
I didn't know, not at all. It was,
We can throw things.
Andy who brought it up.
That was it.
Andy brought it up, yeah.
That's right. Blame Andy.
He said, was that flouncing? He said.
Blame Andy. Yeah. I know your sort. Anyway, the fact of the matter is, because there's been a lot of discussion about Hazard's inability to track back or lack of desire in tracking back. A bit of a ding-dong with Jose. I mean, Dan might be able to reveal something on that. I don't know. Is there anything in there? Have they had a bit of a spat?
I don't think there's much of a spat. I think I was talking to somebody after Mourinho had his press conference where he said the boy doesn't track back, he doesn't do enough, he's not committed enough, who knows him quite well, and said Hazard won't care. Hazard just does what Hazard does, and all of that is water off a duck's back. The boy wants to go out, play football, earn the money, go back to his family, and that's his life.
Very Joe Cole-esque.
Maybe, but he's just not bothered by that. The Belgian manager said the same thing, and he's not bothered by that either.
Mourinho won't like that.
Yeah, that's the thing. I said last week, I think that he's, for Hazard, if he takes it badly, if he did want to leave or something like that, it would show that he isn't really a team player. If he can't take any criticism, why keep someone no matter how good they are,
then
they're not willing to learn?
It proves the point that Mourinho is making, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. But if he's the opposite and just doesn't care, it's just as stupid for Hazard if he just thinks, I'm going to do... Because I think Joe Cole did listen to him, but I think Joe Cole said that he did change his game when Mourinho said it.
He was a better player, I think.
Don't get me wrong.
Physically capable to do everything that he was...
Possibly not. He wasn't fast, was he, really, Joe Cole?
He wasn't the athlete that is needed in sort of this team.
Hazard is an athlete.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Hazard doesn't care about what he has to do for Chelsea. He very much cares about that. He doesn't really care, though, about a manager coating him off. He's not bothered about that.
I think Hazard, after the World Cup, for he's playing for Belgium, obviously, I would like to see him come back next year dressed as Belgium's greatest ever hero. No, not Hercule Poirot, Tintin. I want to see him come back with a Tintin haircut. After Belgium probably get knocked out in the semi-finals against Brazil. But actually, no, I had a much better idea than that, although I think that's quite special.
Okay.
With the emphasis on special.
Yeah, go on.
All right, you want to hear the good idea?
Go on.
This is a good idea. Because I think that Hazard is, without doubt, in that the team we have at the moment, he's the most creative player, without a doubt. Yeah. I thought he had a good game, actually, having just coated him off a little bit, but I thought he played all right. But it just kind of occurred to me, why do we play Hazard out wide? I think it's a waste, because in the team that you have with Mourinho, your wide players are basically augmented wing-backs. They have to track back. It's how Mourinho sets the team up. Why waste your best creative player out on the wide and expect him to track back? Why can't you have him in the middle? Why don't you play him properly as the number 10? To link the balls to... I know we haven't got a striker now, but next season when we have a decent striker...
To put it simply, I think that would negate his game in the system that Chelsea play. Yeah. Because... if you're setting up on a kind of explosive counter-attacking system... or
you might make me cry, Pablo, because I was really excited by that idea.
Then
I thought about that for at least 5 minutes.
But you want the ones that are able to get up and down, and able to... like his goals against Newcastle is probably the best example of that. Transitional players that get from the back to the front very, very quickly, and I think if you put him in the middle, you lose kind of that athleticism.
But he'd have more of a free reign.
The only question about that is, what is the system that Chelsea play?
Well, it's 4-2-3-1.
But is it? Because we've seen two systems this season, haven't we? And Mourinho's been quite clear that in the middle of the season he switched to a far more defensive counter-attacking system. Now he's hinted very, very heavily that he's going to go back to the sort of stuff we saw early doors last season, which was
right. What was it? It was
4-2-3-1, but it was more expansive.
Well, the other idea I came up with, because I think we have an issue both with Hazard and Oscar here, although I think Oscar's more athletic, is prepared to put his foot in. Interesting what Pablo said about him playing quite well in a deeper role. But the other thing I thought about was, why don't we play 4-3-2-1 with Oscar and Hazard as the two behind a decent striker? That could wreak havoc. And you still get width, which is what you need. And the other thing, that the reason why I'm very off the whole 4-2-3-1 issue is, please explain to me why we need two defensive midfielders against
they
most of the teams.
That was what my
They
point
don't
was
play
going to
as
be about
defensive
it.
midfielders, so-
They're not defensive midfielders, are they? That's the point. If you play the system...
Well, what are they
that
offering up front?
Yeah, but if you play the system that we were trying to set out to play early in the season, what we had was basically a counterbalance, didn't you? You had one who'd lie back and one who'd go forward.
Oh, the double pivot.
I don't-
Yellow card. Where's it gone?
I agree with
Have
Tuesday.
an iPhone card. I know, but I teased it out of him.
What we had, I think, is what, like you say, it wasn't necessarily two defensive midfielders, but it certainly weren't attacking enough. The old system was McAlealy holding, Lampard attacking, Essien doing a bit of both. But now you have someone like Mikel or Luiz or Matic staying back. Ramirez doesn't really attack that much. McAlealy used to cover when fullbacks would attack and things like that. Why does Hazard need to get back that much when we have two midfielders who aren't attacking, who can track back and cover the wide areas? They're only gonna
Matic isn't another Mikel, is he? Matic
but
is,
he still holds back.
yeah, but Matic is a Yaya Toure, isn't he, potentially?
Yeah, hopefully.
He doesn't. Yeah, but he doesn't go up.
He will do if the system allows him
But
to.
the system hasn't. So far, though, he hasn't been attacking.
Well,
I don't
that's
think-
because the entire second half of the season, Mourinho said we've played a defensive system. If you see, if we could have seen, and we will maybe see it soon, the system we played in the first half of last season with Matic in it, it might look very different.
But last season, obviously, Jose wasn't there. So how do you know what he was going to do instead? I think for what we had this season, that Hazard wouldn't have had to track back as much when we did have a lot of times more defensive midfielders and attacking midfielders who can cover those positions. They're only going to attack down one wing at a time, so one of the midfielders can get drawn out wide, which is what used to happen when McAlealy used to cover like the left back. If Ashley Cole would go up and link up with like whoever.
That's a good point. Benches, I mean, what do you think about that? Am I completely bonkers as always, or have I got a point?
Yes, bonkers.
Anybody but Jonathan. We're going to have a hashtag, anybody but Jonathan.
I think it's an interesting point. If you have a decent striker and you've got two very skillful players who can use the ball very well, and you've got the two wider midfielders pushing forward, essentially becomes 4-1-4-1 attacking, and then when you drop back,
I think
it could definitely work. I think they're great. Hazard is a key to our future.
Yeah.
He's a
He is,
fantastic
isn't he?
player.
You know what it made me think of as well, watching the game on Sunday and seeing all the discussion about whether Hazard should track back or not. And it just made me think, I wonder how Gianfranco Zola would fare in a Mourinho side. Because poor old Zola, he had little legs, he couldn't tackle for toffee. But we would have lost. I mean, I just get this impression that had we had Mourinho as a manager then, Zola would have been shipped off after 6 months.
I don't know. He's
definitely
used
would have
players like
transferred
that
him.
before. You look at Deco in his Porto team.
that's true.
Similar. So
Listen,
can before we wrap
very
up on the match,
quickly.
can we at least have a mention to Andre Schürrle, who actually completely, totally changed the game
He
because
did.
he's a trier and he's direct.
And I love Andre Schürrle, I really do. But one person I really don't love is that we really do have to talk about this, and it's Torres, I'm afraid. And I just thought that, again, that game summed up, like that game summed up our season, that game summed up his career for Chelsea in a nutshell, the good and the bad, to be fair. But, I mean, that open goal that he missed, and actually the commentator said, Torres, with an open goal! And then, obviously, he missed. But for me, it was a real kind of balloon d'or moment. I mean, most strikers go for the balloon d'or, or the ballon d'or, but Torres, faced with 50 balloons, got a bit confused. But you like that one? Yeah, balloon d'or. I
think it's pretty fair to say he wouldn't have scored it even if the balloons weren't there.
Well, he should have hit it on the ground.
Well, of course he should have done.
Stupid idiot.
Mourinho has been saying all season that he wants a striker who can score 20 goals, and now he has got that in Fernando Torres. It's just taken him 3.5 years to do it.
Quite. He's got actually done, this is an interesting point, I want to get, well, actually, let's do the funnies first. I mean, he's got no acceleration or anticipation or a finish. I mean, he was woeful, I thought. But, he scores a decent goal. That was a decent goal.
Only because he thought it was offside. He wouldn't have scored it if he'd...
But it was a decent goal. We didn't celebrate.
No, I think
Because he
because he was
offside.
expecting he was going to get called off.
Rubbish.
No, it must have
definitely.
been. And then he didn't
celebrate.
celebrate
He didn't
after that.
celebrate when they all the players
Because
were
the
Not
moment
only
had
did he
gone,
not
right?
celebrate, he pushed the other players off, didn't he?
No, it's rubbish. It's because
I don't think
no,
he
it's rubbish. His boyhood team was Cardiff. Everybody knows.
Yes, he played for Cardiff once, didn't he?
He did.
Absolutely right.
Absolutely right.
Me and
Jonathan.
Ross never celebrated. We thought it was offside as well. I think most people were a bit hesitant again.
I was in shock.
And it's
Actually,
the
that Torres had scored a
only
goal.
reason he scored it is because he thought it wasn't going to count. I'm convinced of that. He
Well,
wouldn't have
I don't
scored
know.
it if he
I
thought it was
agree with
onside.
I think
Pablo.
the interesting thing, though, is what Jose said afterwards, which brought horror to Twitter and, in fact, made it melt down massively. Jose said that Eto'o has finished his contract, but I think Torres will be at Chelsea next season. And I just wonder, Dan, if that's Jose being clever and, talking up his bidding price.
I was talking pre-match this evening to Dan, who's on the benches tonight, and saying, if you're an estate agent and you've got a house that's worth £50 million and you're desperate to get rid of it, the last thing you say is, I'm desperate to get rid of this house, isn't it?
Yeah,
so,
that's kind of what I'd hoped.
Yeah.
He said it with Mata. He's always said Mata in the future. He's never ever going to say any player might leave, because if he doesn't, it looks ridiculous. He's always done the opposite, though, or he's always done the sort of thing, or not so sort of thing, of saying about his strikers.
I think Torres may still be a Chelsea player next season.
God help us, really?
But I don't think he'll be playing for Chelsea.
Because they can't sell him.
They can't sell him because nobody
Jonathan,
pays
you're
wages.
spot on. I mean, his legacy, let's hope that was his last Chelsea match, because I've basically just had enough of him. I mean, the support we've given him, the stinky looks he's been giving the last few weeks. I mean, his legacy at this club, he's got rid of 4 managers. His presence has largely been negative. He's not good enough, and I would say he's arguably our worst ever purchase.
Arguably?
Okay, definitely our worst ever purchase. Thank you, Dan, for correcting.
Joe Allen was the worst purchase ever.
At least he could tell a joke, though.
How much did he cost?
Yeah, how much?
250 grand.
Yeah, but in those days, money, that was a lot of money.
Yeah, it wasn't 50 million, was it?
When we signed him, I was so excited.
Yeah.
Biggest disappointment.
Who, Joe Allen?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think money-wise, Chris Sutton probably runs Torres close.
He was all
Actually,
right.
Sutton's
10
probably
million.
For who he was.
Yeah, he was all right. He was always a good player.
So disappointed with him. Biggest disappointment.
I'm just very disappointed with him, and I just think he's got to go. He's been really poisonous to the club. I think I just told him to go. Now
We got Sutton. We got 6 million back for Sutton, didn't we?
That's true, yeah.
About 60% back.
good
We're
value.
not going to get 30 million for
true.
Torres.
Oh, I know. Let's hope he goes, frankly, because I think, as the song said last week, the other week, was it
Time
last
to
week?
go home,
Time
yeah.
to go home. It's time to go home. Fernando Torres. It's time to go
I'm
home.
not doing it for 2 reasons. 1, Snoop John B, and 2, I still don't think people should sing
I
on the
know,
stadium
you
about
do.
him.
Well, go and do a podcast with he who does not be named then. I'm sorry, I've had enough. I've given him everything, my backing.
It doesn't
a
mean
lot.
just sing against someone, though.
All right. But I still thought it was funny. Now, one person I really don't want to go, obviously apart from you, Darren, is Ashley Cole. And it was lovely. It was quite emotional, obviously, at the bridge last week. But I thought even more so at Cardiff. There was a great response by him in the crowd yesterday. Is it really time for Ash? Do you think?
My opinion has always been that I think the club would offer him another year, but I think he'll go to America. But then his tweets last night actually suggested that maybe he does want to stay. I think he's been quite nice about Azpilicueta. I haven't actually read the things, but I've heard that he was saying like that he's been playing very well and that it's hard to argue with Jojo's decisions. But I don't know, I just think that Ash is the sort of person that would go to America, especially with Beckham probably saying, I've got a franchise coming in a year or so, or whatever it'll be. Get over there now and whatnot, and then come join me in a year.
Yeah, interesting stuff.
He's matured a lot, and it's
Hasn't he?
very, very obvious that he's matured as a person over the last few years.
Yeah.
And I think because of that, he's not going to do anything that's bad for him, basically. So if he gets offered a lower deal, then he won't go, and he gets offered somewhere else, he'll probably go there.
Well, I personally, I think. Do you know what? I think it's very analogous to what's going on with England, because obviously the news yesterday was that Ashley Cole's retired from international football because they've selected some spotty teenager to go to the World Cup instead of him. And I think that's a huge mistake, clearly, because you need people with experience. And I think, if we can make the arguments and the case for Lamps and JT staying another year to pass on their knowledge and experience to the players that are coming through, then I think clearly you can say the same for Ashley Cole. Particularly if we were to sign Luke Shaw, although I suspect that's unlikely because we're going to get fleeced if we do.
I think he might go to United.
Luke Shaw.
Speculation today.
If they want to pay 30 million for him, then fine.
There's a number of different reasons. One, because we just won't pay what they're asking for him. He's ridiculously overpriced. And the other one, because if you look at from Shaw's point of view, he was a Chelsea supporter, but he wants to be the England left back. And where's he going to be able to further that ambition? It's a place where he's going to play every week. He won't play every week at Chelsea.
Interesting stuff. Hey-ho, well, that was the season that almost was, I think, but never mind. Benches, have you got a final kind of comment on the game? And Jonathan, what are you doing with your mic?
I'm fiddling with it.
Is there any particular reason?
I'm going to go for a wee.
You're going to go for a wee?
I don't want anybody to hear me.
People are going to be able to hear you fingering your mic.
Oh, thank you. I thought Cardiff were absolutely terrible. And we should have scored 6 as usual. And I think all your comments about Torres were absolutely correct.
Thank you.
And his ability to take one touch when a proper striker would just belt it into the net is phenomenal. And the number of times he's done that over his career with Chelsea,
well, there we go.
just done my head in.
As Bon Scott would say, Fernando Torres, a touch too much. Anyway, after the break, we will be rejoicing in the last fannies for a match this season. I can't wait.